Welcome back. First episode of Mannequin Chill after the NFL draft. I'm back with my partner in crime. Shane is the best. You need to change it. Shane is the best. You're not the worst. You're the best.
But if you call yourself that, I think you're the worst. So, Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, we're back. The NFL draft happened. We were here. We were both on the DLF live stream at one point, not together. I switched around on you and jumped on at a slightly different time. And interesting draft. We have been recording for an hour before this. We did a Dynasty and Chill episode. So technically that'll be part one if you want to just kind of have us talk through some different topics. We hit quarterbacks. We hit the first round. We hit some other players. We hit the gross tier of receivers. So we're going to focus this show on the undesirables in this draft, Shane. So kind of like we did on the last episode, but we're going to focus on all of the picks. We'll call the cut line using the DLF Champ Series ADP. Let's call the cut line to 209 if you're looking at the same screen. So, yeah, I know. You see the names and you're going, yikes. So we're not going to talk about Trevor Lawrence, Kyle Pitts, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Najee Harris, Jamar Chase, Zach Wilson, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. And we're also, Shane, unfortunately not going to talk about Rashad Bateman, Trey Sermon, Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, Terrace Marshall, Pat Freiermuth, or Kadarius Toney.
So
none of those names should come out of your mouth the rest of this.
No. Okay, well, fine, but I got to get this out. Don't draft Michael Carter at 205. He should not be drafted in the second round. If someone's going to draft him in the second round, don't let it be you. Just trade out. If you have the urge to draft him in the second round, please trade out.
Yes.
Okay.
So those are your two rules. Get as much Trevor Lawrence, Kyle Pitts, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance as you can, and do not draft Michael Carter with a pick that has a 2 in front of it. Those two good rules? Okay.
Yes. I like it a lot.
All right, so let's go through just looking at this back half of the second round, 209 through, let's call it 306. We saw some quarterbacks jump into this range because they basically went skipped pick back to back in the NFL draft. 3 quarterbacks and 4 picks came off the board in the NFL draft. We had Kyle Trask, Kellen Mond, Davis Mills, all went off the board pretty much consecutively. They've entered the fray now in this mix, in this range of players. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on where these stand? And you can kind of go through, how they rank from 209 to 306. But what's your thought on this range? I actually kind of like this range. It's just not as good as I thought it would have been. I thought it could have been a little bit deeper had more players got the right draft capital.
Well, I feel like 2 guys stand out in this tier. Dyami Brown and Amari Rodgers, mostly because the draft capital is better than the other players that are here in the situation. I love Chuba, but unfortunately he's dead because he's behind Christian McCaffrey. Although at this part of the draft, honestly, looking at the names after him, you might as well draft him because at least if something were to happen, he'd have a role. I don't know what would need to happen for a guy like Tylan Wallace to become valuable. But I know what would need to happen, a lot of bad things, and I don't want to put that out in the atmosphere. But for Chuba to actually be viable, literally only one bad thing needs to happen. And it doesn't even need to be the worst thing. It could be Christian McCaffrey sprained an ankle and he misses 3 weeks. And then Chuba's going to be RB. Let's see, Mike Davis was an RB1 every week, just about that he was back there. So yeah, that's what Chuba would be. Chuba, however you want to pronounce his name. Amari Rodgers, I think he's a fun buy right now too, because people are so concerned about what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers that they kind of forget that this kid's actually kind of talented. And Green Bay is still pretty bereft of wide receiving targets. Like he could step in there tomorrow and be their, I don't know if he's their 2, maybe their 2B. No, I don't know how many targets that is behind Devontae Adams, but it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 90, which is more than I think Nico Collins will see, or Dwayne Eskridge. The quarterbacks, Davis Mills, if you're picking him, you're doing it so you can flip him as soon as it's announced he's the starter. because that's his value is going to jump to, you could probably get a second round pick for him at that point. And then as soon as he plays, he's going to fall back to about the fourth round. And then you'll have immediately lost all your value. Kellen Mond, obviously, I'm disappointed in him at 302, but I'll snatch him up all day at 302 because he's a guy that I had first round NFL dreams for, but that wasn't to be. But if looking at Mond, Trask, and Davis Mills, Mond is so far above those two to me that it's not even funny. Kyle Trask, I'm not a tape guy, but I had to watch tape of his attempts to play quarterback because I was writing up Kyle Pitts, and he's really bad. He's really bad. I don't know what he's going to be inactive all year too. That's the thing. Blaine Gabbert's there, but yeah. So that's just my first impressions on this whole little area of the draft.
Yeah, I think it's littered with. I mean, it's interesting because Amon-Ra St. Brown is the first receiver off the docket in this range, 209. I think that's because of his opportunity, and there's maybe a little bias there with people liked his profile. You know, he fell a little bit further than you wanted, but I can't argue with it. Again, if you're going to give the NFL, like we talked about on Dynasty and Chill, if you're going to give the NFL a little bit of a pass for maybe some inefficient draft capital selections this year, I don't mind the Amon-Ra St. Brown pick at the 209. Amari Rodgers is interesting. I think this is an interesting tier of receivers. If I leave a draft, and now I wish before the NFL draft, I was looking at these 209 to 212 picks. I thought these had legitimate chance to be late second round receivers, right? Like the Denzel Mims range from last year. They didn't quite get it. And then there were some guys that I thought would be able to jump into this range that I didn't expect. You know, I expected Tylan Wallace to be in this range. I expected, a couple other guys to be a little bit higher. But generally, I think this is a good range of receivers to get Nico Collins, Amari Rodgers, Dyami Brown, or Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think those are all fabulous picks in this range if you're getting them, in the late second, early third round. I agree with you on Davis Mills that, wouldn't you agree that Davis Mills basically has no chance to be a future starter for the Texans? I mean,
no.
He just doesn't. Even if he's good, he doesn't have a path that he's going to be able to stave off a bad team from drafting one early in the next year's draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, do they have a first round pick next year by any chance?
They do.
They do? Is it theirs?
Yes.
Okay. There's a pretty good chance that is the first overall pick.
It's going to be up there. Yep.
Yeah. Davis Mills will be. I don't even know if he'll keep the backup role at that point, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, you trade him as soon as they announce that he's going to start. His value is going to spike. It's going to jump all the way from the third round to you can get a second round pick for him. Maybe do it.
Well, and I think the problem is, are you disciplined to do that? I know you are.
No, but sorry.
You draft Davis Mills at the 30. Let's say you take him at the 304. Okay. He's announced a starter in week 5. You just flip him. You don't even wait to see what he looks like. You don't want to get clouded by, man, did you see his arm? Or you know what I mean? You don't even want to get clouded by maybe he's got a chance to last. Not shout out to all the Gardner Minshew truthers, but a lot of people held him. And it became evident, at least we talked about this last year, it became evident that last summer, Jacksonville didn't really have any interest in trying to win a lot of games. So he was just fighting an uphill battle. They basically said, here, we have about a 4-win team. If you can drag this team outside of the top 5, then maybe you have a shot for us not to get a quarterback. And even if they would have been picking 108, they still would have been in the mix to take a quarterback. Yeah. I mean, you literally have to take a team that should win 4 or 5 games, and you have to go to the playoffs to almost alleviate the team from saying, hey, we're going to draft somebody. So I just think it's dead weight with Davis Mills. And I think a lot of people are saying the same thing. We're not the first 2 people that have said flip him.
What?
If 90% of people say flip him, guess what you're not going to be able to do when you try to flip him?
Okay, I mean, yeah, but you know how it is when the realities of Superflex League set in and Brett Rippon's starting and someone immediately offers you a third-round draft pick for him. It happens. It's going to happen in a Superflex.
Or the person the person that's already chased Tyrod Taylor and paid, a third for him.
Right.
That will pay the price for Davis Mills whenever. Yeah. The person that just chases the quarterback every week, whoever the backup is that's starting.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll happen. I mean, I didn't know we were counting Amon-Ra St. Brown in this. I thought we were only going from 210.
No, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 209.
You cheated.
He makes the cutoff. No.
You cheated.
No.
You cheated.
I said 209 to 306. He's in the mix.
Well, that's not my fault if you expect me to listen. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I loved him so much, and I'm stopping myself from drafting him because I know that I'm going to overvalue him. I know it's going to happen. I know he's going to get 115 targets on that god-awful wide receiving core this year, and I'm going to talk myself into him being better than he is. And then Detroit will sign a free agent wide receiver and then draft 2 more wide receivers, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown will be the wide receiver 4 on that team in 2022, and I'll be stuck with him on my roster instead of accepting a decent offer for him. So I'm not going to draft him because I know that's going to happen to me.
So you don't draft him just for potentially the early opportunity this year?
No.
Interesting.
Because I'm going to hold him. I know me. I'll end up holding him because I liked him too much before the draft, and it's going to be fake gold. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be Tyrell Williams that year in San Diego when everybody, and it was San Diego back then, when everybody was hurt, and he was a top 24 wide receiver, and you talked yourself into it. You're like, you know what? No. He's fast and he jumps well, and he did it in San Diego. I know he can do it again, and never did it again. He can't even stay on the field, but even when he did, he couldn't do it again.
Yeah, this is some next level dynasty logic here with Shane. He's going, I love the player. I actually think he can do good, but then I will not be disciplined enough to be able to sell him because I love him so much and he did good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have dreams about how great he can be, and then my dreams are going to get crushed.
Right.
Because he's going to be relegated to wide receiver 4, and then you can't even get a third.
Exactly.
Is that kind of how the logic is going on in your brain? So you're just skipping all that and saying, I'm just going to skip him entirely.
Yeah. Then I don't even have to worry about it.
Nico Collins. I've got a lot of Nico Collins. Him and Dynasty Brown are actually my 2 highest owned receivers for this reason, just because I think I get to these picks and I ended up with a lot of like late seconds and early thirds. And I'm just like, well, if they're there, I can't pass them up. I haven't really been able to pass them up thus far. How do you separate the two? Because I like Dynasty Brown as, I don't think he can be an alpha, but I think he has some traits to where I could see him be valued in a wide receiver 2 range at some point in his career. Might be a long shot, but I think he has the profile to go along with it more so than Nico Collins. If you had a tie break between those two, who would you pick?
All right, so here's where I'm getting to be a little bit of a size queen, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Nico Collins. I'm sorry. Okay. I mean, it just his size, the speed. I know he did absolutely nothing in college, like literally nothing. Like I don't even remember if he ever had a reception in college. I think he did, maybe one. Probably had like at least 5, right? Probably at least 5 receptions in college. Yeah. But dude, that size and that speed, like he's built like, I hate to be that guy, but he's built like what a wide receiver 1 could look like. Dynasty Brown looks like he'll be a very nice part of an offense. And they both probably have about the same bust potential. So looking at the upside, I'm going to go Nico, and he's a guy that I didn't even like before the draft that much, to be honest with you. But they drafted him in the 3rd round. I mean, I gotta give him that. He got drafted before Seth Williams. God damn it. He got drafted before, some other wide receivers that I liked, like Amon-Ra St. Brown. So yeah, I'll go Nico. Who are you leaning towards?
Well, when I did the Rookie Fever show, the player I did a breakdown on was Dynasty Brown, and one of the comps I put for him, and this was just a height, weight, speed, physical profile, production profile comp, was Nelson Aguilar. And on the surface, whenever you say that name, you just get like, but Nelson Aguilar's actually had an okay career. But if you told me I'm getting Nelson Aguilar's career, I'm probably not going to waste a draft pick on that. Not because it's not worth it. Nelson Aguilar probably has been worth a 3rd round rookie pick. If you just said, here's what you're getting for the 3rd round pick. If you just told me every 3rd round pick, you'd have Nelson Aguilar's career, you would take that most likely. But there's just been so many periods within his 5-year career, 5 off seasons, you could have said, well, I can go buy Nelson Aguilar. There's never a barrier to acquiring that type of player. So I can get behind right now. Right. I can get behind your logic of when you're picking players in this range, you almost have to look at them all and say, what is the 5% or better range of outcome, and pick that guy who has the highest 5% or better range of outcome. If all of these guys hit their upper 5th percentile of ranges of outcomes, which one do I want? And I could see a path where Nico Collins goes out. Does he feel he's different from a prospect standpoint? Does he feel like he could be a little like Terry McLaurin-esque though?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he didn't really produce in college for different reasons. I mean, McLaurin was on a stacked offense.
Right.
Nico Collins wasn't. He was just on a bad offense.
Nico Collins should have been on a stacked. Nico Collins should have been on a stacked offense. Because wasn't that the offense that had Tyreek Black and there was
Ronnie
another
Bell,
one.
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yep.
Yeah. I know at least 3 of those guys were 5-star recruits. And Nico and Donovan Peoples-Jones were talked about like they were the next big things in college before they started. So the offense should have been stacked. But yeah, no, different reasons. But yeah, he does feel like TMC that way. Well,
and it is. I like Ronnie Bell for next year for the same reason. He actually is going to face the same narratives when you look at his analytical profile next season. But Donovan Peoples-Jones was super young. He was an early declare. He was 20 when he came out. He fell to the 6th round, probably because teams were going, what the hell is this guy? You know, he's big and he's super athletic, but what else? But he actually got on the field last year. I actually think he could be a decent player. He did. So I think that works in Nico Collins' favor. So I'm taking Nico Collins in this range if I can. Any thoughts on, obviously it's Aaron Rodgers dependent, but Amari Rodgers, do you think he could be the quickest to production in this range, especially given that he could be catching passes from the efficiency king in the NFL and Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, if Aaron Rodgers is there, no doubt. If Aaron Rodgers isn't there, then probably Amon-Ra St. Brown, but we've already talked about why I can't draft him. So if I needed production tomorrow, yeah, I'd probably risk it on Amari. And I don't even like him that much, Kenneth Gainwell, but mostly because I think he's going to play slot receiver for the Eagles. But that's really taking a leap of faith on my part. Just moving the guy's position and all that. So that's probably not a very good process. So yeah, I'll go with Amari Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good receiver tier like we're talking about. I think you can get a decent receiver here. I can actually feel comfortable trading out of the 207, 208 range if I know I'm going to be quote-unquote stuck drafting Kadarius Toney or Michael Carter. I'm actually okay trading back to one of these turn picks, 211, 212, 301, especially if I'm going to be stuck drafting Kadarius Toney, because I'm not a big fan. I'm okay going back and maybe picking up, I trade the 206 or 207, especially if I know it's going to be Kadarius Toney or maybe Michael Carter. I pick up the 212 or the 301 and a future third or a future second even. Like I'm doing that just because I think the difference in the prospect profiles aren't that much.
Yep, exactly. I mean, honestly, Tony's a guy that I've drafted in one draft, but it was at 214. And again, at 214, it's ugly. It's not nice. There's not things you want to see. Yeah. Stop drafting Michael Carter at 205, people.
Yeah, we broke the rules. We talked about Michael Carter. We should have never said the names Michael Carter or Kadarius Toney. I violated my own rule that I set for you.
At least Toney, at least I'll say this about Toney though, right? At least if you're drafting him, you can at least point to, well, he's a first-round wide receiver. You know what I mean? You can at least point to that. What are you pointing to with Michael Carter? I'm sorry. We'll move on. I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to get stuck in this.
Yeah, and I don't want to go back into the why was Kadarius Toney a first round pick? We won't go into that. Let's talk about the 2 quarterbacks we actually might be a little bit interested in. Kyle Trask, Kellen Mond. Tie break between the two. I know you love Kellen Mond, so I think I know your answer, but kind of walk through what your thoughts on are both.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with from the tape that I saw. Again, I'm not a real tape guy, but I can usually tell bad from the tape I saw of of Kyle Trask. He doesn't look good to me. He had one good season in college when he targeted Kyle Pitts a lot, and was it Kadarius Toney? I don't. He's a backup. He's that's all he'll ever be. Kellen Mond is at least he's mobile. He's he didn't play on the greatest team, but he started a lot of games. I think he started going back to his freshman year. I gotta look that up.
He did. 3.5-year starter.
Yeah, so 3.5-year starter. Like he was never in. There was never a doubt that was his job. As opposed to Zach Wilson, who was just drafted second overall. And if I'm going to bet on a guy at this range of quarterback, he better be mobile, because even if you can't throw, as we saw with Jalen Hurts last year, if you can run, you can still put points up. And you can at least be a quarterback one some of these weeks. And Kirk Cousins, and just looking at the situation, Kirk Cousins' contract is ridiculous. They have to do something with him next year. Now, does that automatically mean they're going to go to Kellen Mond? No, but I mean, he'll already be on the roster, as opposed to Kyle Trask, who's not even going to start this. He's not going to be active this year. Probably he's going to watch most of the games from home. And quite frankly, I don't know when Tom Brady's ever retiring. I think he can play as long as he wants to at this point. And he might be there for 3 more years. And then what do you got in Kyle Trask? You got a 3-year backup. And again, he's not mobile. He's not mobile. Neither is Tom Brady, but Tom Brady's also one of the greatest quarterbacks that have ever played the game. Like, that's a very thin needle, or very thin pinhole that you're trying to get through there, and only certain guys can get there. Kellen Mond could be bad at throwing, but good at running and still produce for me. Kyle Trask, when he's bad at throwing, which he is, I got nothing. He gives me nothing. That's my fear. He'll give you absolutely nothing. He's Jacob Eason. How'd that go?
Yeah. I think Kellen Mond is somebody I'm actually okay taking at the very, very beginning of this tier for exactly what you described. He is going to be a player that is different than the starter that he would potentially even come in and replace for one game due to injury. He's just going to look different. The offense is going to look different. That doesn't mean they may win. It doesn't mean it's going to be the future starter, but I can just envision it. I think you probably can too. Kirk Cousins sprains his ankle. He's out for 2 games. Kellen Mond's going to start 2 games. And you see some of this. I actually predicted the earlier today on the Patreon show that if Kellen Mond ever got in, we would actually be probably talking about him like Jalen Hurts. Like, man, this guy looks good. Like, let's give him some more work. You'd start hearing the Vikings fans going, we're sick of Cousins. Kirk Cousins had 35 touchdowns and 13 interceptions last year. He's not the problem. He's a good NFL quarterback. But if Kellen Mond came in and looked good and the offense looked good and maybe it looked a little more up-tempo and he was mobile, you can see the echo chamber going, let's put him in, right? Like, let's play him over Kirk Cousins. Come on, Kirk Cousins isn't any good. And it's like, Kirk Cousins is really good. But I can just see the buzz with Kellen Mond being higher, where people start telling themselves, man, if this guy ever gets a shot, he could be worth a late first, early second. So, man, I would want to have him simply for that reason. Opportunity is probably pretty low for both guys, but that's the path.
And there's the fact that, and that was a good point you brought up, is the community hates Kirk. I'm not even sure why. If you're a Minnesota Viking fan, at least I understand it, because he's wildly overpaid and you guys can't make it out of the first round of the playoffs. But in fantasy, I don't understand the hatred for him. No, he's not mobile, but guess what? He is a quarterback 1 every season. You could, before the season starts, just pencil him in as a QB1, because that's what he's going to be. He had literally a bad 3-game stretch 2 years ago, and everyone holds on to that like he's terrible. They're like, oh, they don't let him throw. That was literally 3 games they didn't let him throw, and then since then he's been fine. He's been quarterback 1. But yeah, so if Kellen Mond were to get in there, if he ran for 115 yards and threw for 120, and ran for a touchdown and threw 2 interceptions, we would anoint him the new starter in Minnesota, and his value would spike.
People would lose their minds, just like Jalen Hurts last year. And people don't like Kyle Trask either. So it isn't like he would have this. People are just waiting for him to take over. I mean, I know he has some fans, but generally he's been somebody that dropped like such a rock after the bowl season that I don't think there's a lot of people that really like Kyle Trask either. So even if he fell into a spot where maybe he could be the starter, I think the Jacob Eason comparison is great. I mean, he got better draft capital, but I think the situations are somewhat similar in terms of potential opportunity. So you mentioned Kenneth Gainwell. This is a tough one for you. Kenneth Gainwell or Chuba Hubbard? Talk through those two. Chuba. No debate at all?
No. So, yeah, because the only way I see relevancy for Gainwell is I just changed his position to wide receiver. He's not taking Miles Sanders' job. If the Eagles liked him all that much, trust me, they would have overdrafted him because it's the Eagles, and that's what they do. They would have fixated on him and drafted him in the third round, even if no one else was going to. He's a depth piece. Chuba too, but the difference is if CMC were to go down, you have a running back one when you have Chuba. I gotta choose how I'm gonna say his name because I haven't yet, and it's been like 3 years. Hubbard. I'll just call him Hubbard. If CMC were to go down and you have Hubbard, you have a running back one. It's a guaranteed lock, stock, and barrel. Mike Davis was a running back one there. Hubbard will be it. If Miles Sanders were to go down, I don't see Kenneth Gainwell being a running back one. I'd be shocked if he was a running back two. I'd be pretty shocked if he even got all of the carries or most of the carries in that backfield. I got a feeling if Jordan Howard's on the team still, he'd be sharing time with Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, that it would be a committee. So I'll take Hubbard just because they, neither of them have an easy path to relevancy, but at least Hubbard's just one. He just needs one thing. Gainwell needs a lot of stuff to go his way, and like I said, maybe he gets his position changed to wide receiver, and he beats Greg Ward out for the position.
Yeah, and Chuba's ADP has started to rise too. So him and Kellen Mond, I actually think you could justify taking at the top of this tier, just because of what you laid out and what we talked through with both of them. I mean, that the opportunity is not there right now, but I think both of them have the path that if the best case scenario happened, they would have by far the best upside of all the players in this tier. I mean, that's just my take. So if you're sitting there at the 209 and you go, you know what, I don't want to pick between these four receivers because they're all probably at best wide receiver threes in Dynasty, take the shot on the running back or the quarterback. Kind of the same reasons we talked about taking those guys earlier on in the first round. So I think we're in lockstep there. So let's go to this. This starts to get really ugly and ambiguous after the 205. Let's just go from the 306 to... We'll just go 306 to 312. What stands out in that range, Shane? Is it Dwayne Eskridge in his second round draft capital that you can get at the 306?
I'm good. One thing that stands out is I didn't know Josh Palmer was a human being until he was drafted, so that was cool.
Yeah, Josh Palmer and Dez Fitzpatrick, in my wide receiver model, I had neither of them in the top 30, and then all of a sudden I have to adjust to like them both being the top 15 receivers off the board.
I remember us making fun of Dez Fitzpatrick a couple months ago and then forgetting all about him because that's what everyone should have done. I guess, look, at this point, you have to draft based on something, right? And with these names on here, I loved Wallace, but he's dead now. So, yeah, I guess you have to look at Eskridge and Hunter Long. And that's it. That is sincerely it. I don't care about anyone else after that or in this range.
Do you have any shares or have you picked Dwayne Eskridge at all yet?
I haven't, but I'll tell you what. If I was on the board at 306, I would take him. I would take him here. Unless, of course, Pat Freiermuth fell for some reason, which I've seen in a couple drafts. Like what? I don't know. Look, Kellen Mond, maybe if Kellen Mond fell here, nah. I mean, I guess you'd have to, right? He's got day two capital.
Feels a lot like Van Jefferson last year.
It does. He's old like Van Jefferson. Did he even break out in college? Like, he couldn't have broken out because he was a 25-year-old man. So
I actually think Dwayne Eskridge did have a 21. I'll look it up. He did break out his last season, but he didn't, or his season before last, but he didn't really produce at a level that would stand out. He actually technically broke out at 21 if you just take the market share numbers from 2018. But he barely played in 2019 because of an injury, and then 2020, he really had the same season in 2020 in less games than he did in 2019. So technically, in 2018. So technically, he did break out at 20 and a half. But again, he's 24 and he played 5 years in college. So there's just not a lot of paths with his profile.
He's not like Van Jefferson. He's like Van Wilder all the years in college. So yeah, I guess him.
But he landed with Russell Wilson. Efficiency king. If he gets snaps,
right? And he doesn't. Russell doesn't. It's none of his receivers need a ton of targets to be productive, so that's the good thing. Yeah, so I guess him and Hunter Long are really the only guys that I can even care about here. I mean, I'm sure I'll draft one of these other people because I have to. You know what I mean? Like no one will trade with me, I'm sure. Because no one's like, oh my God, I can't believe Ramondre Stevenson's still on the board. Let me trade up. So yeah, I'll draft one of those other human beings if I have to, but I don't want anyone outside of Long, and I barely want Eskridge, but I would take him because of the capital.
Well, what's it feel like? Because I've noticed that it's hard to get in and get these picks as much as we kind of crap on how bad the class is. It's hard to like trade in and get a pick. It's like people are addicted to just drafting a player. At this point, even if it's a fair offer, it's hard to get in and get these picks, and you drafted, this guy. Yeah, you wouldn't take the future third, but you drafted JB Hawkins, UDFA. I mean,
I'll do it all day. Anybody wants to trade me a random third next year or 2023 for a third this year, all yours. Have at it. Same with the fourth. Same probably with the second, depending. But that's I already own this, so it's worth more than what I don't own. So I'm not giving it up, even though there's about a 50% chance you're cutting any of these guys that you draft before the season starts because they're not going to make a roster.
And you hit on Hunter Long. I actually think Hunter Long he's kind of just been blah throughout the process, but he also landed in a good spot. I actually think Miami will move on from Mike Gesicki just because I don't think he fits the type of tight end and it's not shade on Mike Gesicki. It's just, he's a free agent after this year. So he's gonna come up, and are they really going to pay Mike Gesicki at the current tight end rate? Probably not. So I think Hunter Long actually has a path to be somebody that next year could at least go up in value just based on attrition. The idea of, the player in front of him left, so someone has to step up. So actually, I like the Hunter Long pick. I think his ADP is going to rise. He's one of those guys that you can get him now in the late third, early fourth. Even some of these DLF Champ Series leagues, I know this is the ADP for that. I actually got him at the 406 in one of these leagues, and it's a 2 PPR for tight ends. So he's just not on people's radar because I don't think people want to wait. They don't want to wait for 2024 for Hunter Long. You know what I mean? They just don't. They don't have the patience. But he's somebody that you can get pretty cheap in this range. The other one I wanted to ask you about, unless you have any thoughts on Hunter Long additionally.
No, I mean, other than most tight ends, you're waiting at least a year or two anyway. Like, yeah, that should be baked in just because there's someone in front of them. You should be happier actually that there is someone in front of them. And then you can blame that as the reason that they weren't producing, as opposed to most rookie tight ends that just don't produce regardless. But anyway. Right.
Well, I mean, rookie tight ends, you're actually almost waiting until their second contract in a lot of ways. Like you're not the guys that hit early before their second contract. You pretty much know who those guys are. They're George Kittle, Mark Andrews, like those guys. Even if they weren't expected to hit right away, you knew they were. By year 2, you already knew they were really good. You know what I mean? There wasn't like a 4-year ramp up period where, we can go down the line, but I'm still, you're going to probably roll your eyes at this. I still don't think a guy like Ian Thomas is completely done for.
I won't roll my eyes because you're my boy. But if someone else were to say that to me, I'd roll my eyes at them. No,
so you wouldn't buy Ian Thomas for one of these picks in the 4th round?
Oh, well, yeah, no, because I actually know who he is. So, yeah, no, I would.
Okay. I mean, Chris Herndon is another one that, like...
I won't give up on him yet either. Yeah. Look, man, athletic tight ends, we will just never give up on. I don't even know who I'm pretending. Like, I'm still holding on to OJ Howard and David Njoku. You know that. Like, I'm still like, no, they're going to be a thing. They just get to that second contract when they move to wherever, and then they'll be fine. So now, yeah, I get it. I won't roll my eyes at you. Well, I would, but then I'd think about it and be like, nah, yeah, he's right.
I mean, you still holding out hope for Josh Oliver, Cahill Waring, those types? Jace Sternberger. I think the point is the dynasty landscape is littered with these guys.
Yeah.
And you don't know which one's going to be the next Robert Tonyan, Logan Thomas, Darren Waller. I mean, I know they all have different stories, but players do come out of nowhere. Trey Burton came out of nowhere. You know that as an Eagles fan. So it's never worth giving up on these guys. You have to play the long game. But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion and a whole nother show, which probably wouldn't be all that entertaining. So
I think that would be a very dry show. But feel free to put it in the comments if you'd like us to dedicate an episode to that.
Yeah. Okay. So running backs in this range. Oh, real quick, Josh Palmer, Chargers. No one thought he'd go in the third round. Any interest in Josh Palmer just based on the landing spot and how some of their peripheral receivers were relevant last year?
Yeah, I'll take him over. Oh, you know what? I actually like Anthony Schwartz too, but I probably skipped down. So no, I like Anthony Schwartz, and I like. I don't like Josh Palmer, but again, draft capital. I will draft him over just about everyone else. Yeah, I'm not drafting Ramondre Stevenson or Brevin Jordan over him.
Makes sense.
Or Tyler Wallace. No.
Yeah, Tyler Wallace one. That's
hurts.
a tough one. Yeah, it's a tough one, especially being the second receiver off the board to that team, which wasn't a great landing spot to begin with. Yeah, that's a kind of poor one out for him. He's kind of stuck in no man's land, I think. So that's a tough landing spot if you had Tyler Wallace pre-NFL draft. Elijah Mitchell, I think, is interesting just because every argument you can make for Trey Sermon, you could make for Elijah Mitchell. He just went, 3 rounds later in the NFL draft. But I think if you're fading Trey Sermon, it might not be too bad of an idea to pick up Elijah Mitchell. Or if you like Trey Sermon, to pick up Elijah Mitchell. What do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like Trey Sermon has a history of staying on the football field. I mean, the guy's been injured he was another, 5-year college player that somehow was injured every year in college. And we've seen what Kyle Shanahan can do with undrafted free agents, with low capital for running backs. Like his system's good for it. He can rotate those guys in and make them useful, even if it's not for a long time. Look, Raheem Mostert still had some value until he was eviscerated this weekend at the draft. But there was a point last year where you could have traded Raheem Mostert for a future first. So yeah, I'm good with that. Elijah Mitchell too. Yeah.
So favorite player remaining on the list, and we'll just talk about kind of our strategy on. I mentioned on the DNC episode that I'm going to kind of take 3 or 4 of these guys and try to get them in as many leagues as I can. You mentioned Anthony Schwartz. I think we're in lockstep with Anthony Schwartz. I don't understand why he's going a round and a half after Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know what I mean? It just seems very odd that his profile has always lagged behind some of the other guys. It really doesn't make sense that he's going around or more behind Diami Brown, Amari Rodgers, Nico Collins. You know what I mean? It doesn't really line up. So that's definitely a popular one. No one liked him before the draft, right? He didn't. Which made no sense.
Right. I guess he's a one-trick pony, right? But
he's not, though. He's not even 21. I'm not going to cast him off, especially in the Auburn offense.
I know.
I'm not going to cast him off as a one-trick pony.
Eyes in the community, he's kind of a one-trick pony, right? Like he was just super fast.
Or they haven't seen anything other than that from him. Right. So that's how he's classified, yes.
Right. But yeah, he's still a baby. He's still really young. He's probably the guy to take. 3rd-round draft capital. Look, I don't care if it's 4 picks before Amon-Ra St. Brown in the real draft. That's a line of demarcation. Like 4th-round receivers don't hit. They just don't. I mean, yes, this year you could say it's different because of COVID, whatever. Fine. We'll see. But I mean, at least in the one skill that I know he has is unique. Like I know he's blazing fast. So So yeah, I'm taking a shot on him, especially again at this part of the draft. I want someone that has something special about them, or at least a clear path to relevancy and knowing that they could do something if they get that path cleared for them. I hate everyone else. I don't.
Oh, come on. A hate's a little bit of strong. No love for Tutu Atwell, round 2 draft capital?
No, Tutu Atwell offends me on a personal level. He weighs 149 pounds. I am scared he's going to die on the football field. I'm scared that they're just going to like rip him in half by accident. You know what I mean? Because he's so little. I don't even want to watch him play football because it's kind of like watching a car crash. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, I know I shouldn't look at this, but no. Sean McVay, I know he's a genius and all, but no. Van Jefferson last year and then this guy this year. I'm not really sure what he's doing. No interest in Tutu.
Tommy Tremble, decent draft capital.
Yeah, you know what? I don't hate Tommy Tremble. I do tend to start drafting a whole lot of tight ends in the 4th round for whatever reason. Probably because it's easy to tell yourself that story of, well, if the starter goes down, it's just this guy and he'll see some targets. And basically, if you get 3 receptions for 30 yards and a touchdown, you're a tight end 1. So yeah, Tremble. Where's Kenny, your boy, going?
Way down the list.
Way down. Okay, don't even need to talk about it.
Way down the list, yeah. So,
I love this guy. So there's this guy who I don't think's a real person, Bodie McBoatface. Racy McMath. Sorry, yeah, Racy McMath. I love that name. I'm happy that I shouldn't say I'm happy. That makes it sound awful, but like Tamarian Terry, I'm happy that. Shouldn't say I'm happy that he wasn't drafted because that sounds mean, but now I kind of wish he was drafted in like the 5th round, just because then I know fantasy players would have overdrafted him since everybody was in love with him for no particular reason. But that's just me being mean. So let me find someone that I actually like. Yeah. So that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Jamar Jefferson, now that Kerryon Johnson got cut?
No.
No love for UDFA Javian Hawkins, even though he landed in a good spot?
Yeah, no. And even my boy Seth.
Hey, you mentioned some tight ends. I actually think there is some interesting tight ends. I think that both Noah Gray and Kylan Granson are interesting tight ends. Both got decent draft capital. Both got decent landing spots. I do think Jacob Harris with the Rams is decent. He sounds like a guy that's going to end up moving to tight end. He's actually already listed as tight end on the Rams depth chart. And then Jalen Camp is another guy that I could see moving to a tight end. So he's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Georgia Tech wide receiver. Anybody that reminds you of when you're talking about a Georgia Tech wide receiver from the past?
Who's Georgia Tech? Was that Calvin?
Darren Waller went to Georgia Tech.
Darren Waller, did he? Oh, that's right. He was a receiver in college. I forget about that. That's right. Well,
I'm saying Jalen Camp is Darren Waller, but
he's Darren Waller.
Listen, he's got the first 2 things off the board. Okay, Darren Waller was a 6th round pick. Okay, he went to Georgia Tech, and he's could be moving to receiver.
So he's
been moving to tight end. He's checked the boxes. Yes,
he's Darren Waller. Calvin Johnson did go to Georgia Tech. Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't play tight end though.
No, probably could have.
Where's Trey McKitty? You don't like Trey McKitty?
He's down there. He's about halfway through round 5 or the UDFAs. I was shocked that he got drafted as high as he did, because like he really doesn't offer a whole lot from a profile standpoint. I'm pretty sure I saw the Twitter clip where I'm trying to think who it was that posted it. Sorry for not giving you proper credit, but he literally posted it. And this is what we talked a little bit about on the last show, was like the Chargers literally saw him make like 4 great catches at the Senior Bowl, and they just drafted him. It's like, okay, we've run out of players to pick. We're in the 3rd, which is sad that you're in the 3rd.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, that guy. You know, they took him at the very end of round 3 in the compensation picks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that might have been a night where like they were out of players for that round, and they were going to have to recalibrate for day 3. They're like, yeah, this guy, he made those great catches at the Senior Bowl. Let's take him.
You know, it would be an interesting study is the hit rate on third round tight ends. Because in theory, you would think, well, that's not bad draft capital. Like, you know what I mean? And at that position, that's you're really putting some capital into the position. But it feels like every third round tight end that's been drafted for the last 15 years has not panned out.
Off the top of my head, the difference between like third, fourth, and fifth rounders hitting is almost nothing. Because I think tight ends are the hardest position to take draft capital and say he was drafted higher because of this reason. Teams draft. It feels like NFL teams draft tight ends for like 5 different reasons. So it depends on what they're looking for. So a guy could go in the third round and you're like, I mean, the Bengals drafted Drew Sample in the second round. I mean, and he may actually turn out to be a decent NFL player, but correlating that with draft capital makes no sense.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, I just get, whenever Drew Sample comes up, I get triggered because he was supposed to be like the best blocker in the draft. And you look at like some of his blocking grades and it's like he sucks. You know, at least the Bengals could have drafted a good blocking tight end, right? God knows they need blocking. But they can't even block. So now you just look back and you go, what were they looking at? You know what I mean? I literally feel like someone said, yeah, Drew Sample, he can block. Oh, we need blockers. Let's take him.
Take him.
Oh, but he really can't block that good. So he's useless.
Yep.
Anyway, so I think the correlation is pretty low. I'm looking for, can the guy get on the field? You know what I mean? If Noah Gray gets on the field behind Travis Kelce his first year, like he just gets like 6 snaps a game, I'm taking a victory lap for picking him up on waivers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, any other names stand out? Cornell Powell to the Chiefs?
No.
Any interest there?
No. And I mean, all right, yeah, if I'm picking here again, yeah, I'll look at the situation and it's the Chiefs. So, sure. Although we haven't talked about how this offseason has gone perfectly for McCall Hardman, but it's a story for another day.
But we've been rostering Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson in leagues every year for the last couple of years, just because they're on the Chiefs.
We is a strong word.
Me, not you.
I might have picked up some Byron Pringle after he exploded that one week and then quickly regretted it. And Demarcus Robinson, I might have way too many shares of. But that's fine. I mean, look, at this point, if you're still drafting at this point, because I know some people have 5-round drafts, and God help us, the folks that have 5-round drafts this year, because this is not the year for it. Yeah, sure. His situation.
Do you have any interest in Jamie Newman?
No.
No? Mm-mm. With the way the Eagles cycle through quarterbacks and his makeup, you have no
quarterback
interest?
No. No, none at all.
Okay.
None at all. Hey, they got Joe Flacco there after Hurts. They're fine.
Yeah. Kylan Hill, any interest in Green Bay?
Benjamin? No. The NFL told me exactly what they think of Kylan Hill.
Okay.
And look, yes, there's undrafted free agents every year that come out of nowhere, right? There's Philip Lindsay and James Robinson, but there's literally like one of them every year. You know what I mean? It's not like it's it's not like it's a plethora of them.
Hi, Addison. We'll have to mark that one in there.
Kurtz at 48, 40-ish. Okay.
No, that's all good. That's all good. We can just select the E logo on this for explicit. 4th round pick, Jalen Darden. Any interest to Tampa Bay?
No, God, no.
Shane just hates everybody.
It's just, what is there to like? That Tampa Bay wide receiver room is like, do you like Tyler Johnson? Yeah, well, too bad we're bringing back Antonio Brown. Oh, okay.
I like Scotty Miller too, but he's also buried.
That's going to say, you like Scotty Miller? Well, too bad we just drafted Jalen Darden. Like, it's just.
Well, Scotty Miller, player profiler's best comparable to Jalen Garden is guess who?
Is it Scotty?
Scotty Miller.
Yeah. Scotty's
and they really do look like the same player. If you look at their production, you look at their profiles, they're almost the same.
Look, and if you really want to go back in the day, I mean, 2 years ago, it was Justin Watson. I mean, they just hoard wide receivers that we are like, someday, and someday never comes. It's Chris Godwin. It's Mike Evans. It's now apparently Antonio Brown.
So some guys getting some buzz, though. Maybe me. I created a little buzz with this guy, Keeney Nwankwo. Picking him up in every league. I'm taking a shot. 4th-round pick, RB6 off the board. He's literally a Tony Pollard clone. Look it up. See my thread on Twitter. But I think he's worth picking up in the 4th round. That's one of the guys I'm going all in, just leaving 8 to 10 drafts with the guy. And then I'll cut him off. He doesn't, once I see his role, I may cut him off.
No, I like it. Look, especially this, it's the 4th round of the draft, dude. If you have conviction on any player, just keep taking him. I mean, because most of these
prioritize taking running backs because of that reason, just because there's a prayer they could be on the depth chart, or
at this point of the draft, yes. I wouldn't do this in the 2nd round. I wouldn't, do the running backs over the wide receivers. But at this point of the draft, now it's like, all right, well, am I going to get 2 points out of this wide receiver, or could I get 2 starts out of this running back? What's more valuable to me?
Well, and nothing feels worse on teams when you have the Scotty Millers, because you can never play them, but they're too good to drop, and you just get stuck in this purgatory range where you have, that feeling where you have 8 receivers that you don't want to cut because someone else will pick them up.
Yep.
But you also go, well, what's the worst case scenario if someone else picks them up? Because I would never trade for them. So they're not worth anything. You can't trade them for anything. So
but as soon as they hit the waiver wire, I will jump on them. I'll go, oh, wait, no. I'm going to dump this trash that I was holding. I got Scotty Miller now. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Jared Dokes on Miami. I've seen him getting drafted in a ton of leagues.
I don't know who that is. I have no idea who that is. I'll believe you. He's getting drafted.
He's on there. 7th-round pick to the Dolphins. A lot of people have said he could push your boy Myles Gaskin.
Okay, Myles Gaskin. Salvon Ahmed is going to be the one that takes Myles Gaskin's job. Let's just get that.
I think it could be Jared Dokes could supplant Salvon Ahmed.
Okay. Sure. Okay. I'll write his name down and I'll look him up. How about Tariq Black wasn't even signed as an undrafted free agent, huh?
No.
Jesus.
No.
All right. No.
Chris Evans on the Bengals is another one to look out for. I think he has a shot to be on the depth chart, which, if you pick a running back here, you just pray they make the team. Right?
Yeah.
Even if they're inactive on game day, you just pray that they're on the 53-man roster and they're one injury away from getting on the field.
Yeah.
That's what you're hoping for with these receivers or with the running backs.
Yeah, because at this point with the wide receivers, you need multiple injuries. You need a pandemic to take out the wide receiver room for any of these wide receivers to ever matter. Whereas, running back, it just takes 1 or 2 guys to go down, and then look, you can get a start or 2 out of them. That gives them value at least.
So if you're picking one guy in the 4th round or UDFAs that you're willing to just go all in on in every league in the 4th round, who is it?
God,
and you can't say Anthony Schwartz.
Why can't I say Anthony Schwartz? He's the 3rd round. Nope, he's the 4th round.
Because he's going to go higher in a lot of drafts. You're not going to be able to just get him at the 412, 408 every draft.
Oh, God. No. Just no. No. I have no conviction over any of these guys. I don't want them. You know who I'm going to take? Racey McMath. I love his opportunity in Tennessee. The wide receiver core is very thin, I know that outside of AJ Brown, there won't be a lot of targets, but Ryan Tannehill is super efficient. Also, the guy's name's Racey McMath. So, and at this point of the draft, I'm not going to be honest with you. It's silly season this year. What's crazy is in some years, in the 4th round, you're still like, I like this guy. I can't believe he's still out here. This year, it's 4th round, and I'm going, I don't know that that's a real person. I think this was a write-in vote to MFL.
Well, Racey McMath, okay, listen, he is a 4-year player.
Mm-hmm.
He is 6'2", 211 pounds. He has the smallest hands in the class. Okay?
Oh. Oh, no.
His college dominator, 4th percentile. Solid.
Not very good, yeah.
Never broke out. Yeah. He played behind, obviously, great receivers at LSU, right?
Well,
his entire career.
Yeah, so you can blame it all on that.
You can. Now, he had his best season was actually 2019 with Joe Burrow. He did have 17 catches for 285 yards. Now, I will say this. Remember, Russell Gage was the same thing.
Yeah.
At LSU. He was literally the fifth receiver and a special teamer. And somehow, if you'd have told me Russell Gage would have a near 100-target season in the NFL, you could have won a lot of money on me or off me at the time. Yeah. So I'm just saying, there's some precedent for a guy like this coming from a place like LSU to make the team. You'll take it if he makes the team, right?
Yeah, he had to play with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and
Terrace Marshall and Keyshawn Boutte.
Yeah. So and Thaddeus Moss.
Yep.
So there's a lot of, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was taking a lot of targets. So, if you look at it that way, he's a definite, guy that I'll draft for fun.
Yep. Well, my guys, I won't say Anthony Schwartz, but definitely Anthony Schwartz is one. But my guys in this range, Jacob Harris, Chris Evans, Keenan Nwankwo, Noah Gray, Kylan Granson. Those 5. I'm trying to take away as many leagues as I can with those guys. Seth Williams, man, I can't quit Seth Williams. I'm going to end up with a lot of Seth Williams for that reason, too.
Look, at this point of the draft, that's fine.
And the same arguments that you can make with, some of these other guys you can't make with Seth Williams. Of course, he goes to the Broncos. So, he's going to fight Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler for, just relevance.
Yeah.
Snaps.
Yeah.
And I don't like his chances against either of those guys either.
No.
Yeah, so it's a rough go at it. I almost kind of hope Seth Williams doesn't make the team, lazies his way out of not making the team and then can go somewhere else. That might be better for his career. So.
Yeah.
All right, last thoughts. We've kind of hit this gross range of players, but my final takeaway is this. Waivers are fun this year because you can get all these guys in different leagues. I've actually had more fun going on my waivers and being no one took, Khalil Herbert in this league. Let's pick him up. But drafted him in the 4th round, I'm like, ugh, that doesn't feel good. So I'm almost kind of I'm okay getting my shares on waivers. You know what I mean? Because it's fun to go in the waivers and go, oh, man, no one drafted Seth Williams. I'll just pick up the 14th share. But waivers are fun this year, which usually speaks to the fact that the draft sucked. All right, final thoughts, Shane. Let's hear it. Some words of wisdom for Dynasty players to get better.
So anything after 205, trade out. Just trade for next year. Someone's going to want to trade up with you. And again, I don't care if it's a straight this year's second for next year's second, this year's third for next year's third. If you just got to kick the can, it's fine. There's going to be a couple players that hit from the 3rd round or the 2nd round because it always happens. But even if it's 2, which is probably even high, the hit rate is very low. So don't let people keep telling you that, I got Terry McLaurin in the 3rd round. Well, not everyone in the league drafted Terry McLaurin, did they? No, only one dude did. And he didn't do it on purpose because if he did, he would have done it in the 2nd round. So that's my only thing is feel free to trade these picks for next year's picks after the 1st round, after 205-ish.
I like it. Yeah, and I tend to just go and, technically you can just post a tweet about every single 3rd rounder this year and be like, he's the best value in 3rd round. So then you can only pull that one up in 2 years when he hits. Say, you see, I was taking him in every 3rd round, and it's never really the case. Because I make the mistakes all the time. I'm not convicted enough in these range. I typically will, 2nd and 3rd rounders, I will definitely diversify where I can. So with that, we'll end the show. Almost an hour long. It's been a pleasure talking to you again, Shane. I have no idea what our next episodes are going to be about. The draft is over. We actually can start focusing on the season coming, which is, the season actually starts in less than 16 weeks.
4 months.
4 months, yep. Less.
All right, I'm ready.
I think 16 weeks from right now when we're recording this, which I won't say the day, but we're recording it on May 6th. I think it's actually 16 weeks from right now will be Thursday Night Football. Opening night.
And that's good because I'll probably at that moment be so tired of talking about rookies and off-season stuff that I'll just want to set lineups. That's why Dynasty is the perfect game. As soon as you get burned out on one area of it, it's like, all right, it's time to do this other thing. And then you burned out on that, and you're like, oh, now I get to do this other thing. It's the greatest game ever.
Yeah, so leave us comments if you actually want to see us cover specific topics. Otherwise, we just kind of talk and hopefully entertain everybody. At Charles Chill FFB, at Shane is the worst. Find us on Twitter there. Shane is the host of Dynasty Trades HQ. I am the host of Dynasty and Chill. And then DLF, at DLF Football. Only one F. Don't type in 2 or it won't come up. But yeah, check us out on DLF, and we'll go ahead and end show there later on.
Bye, DLF World.